so you get to kind of insight on my life, whether you want to or not. Right now I work as an HR generalist at Seven Springs. I've been in the office for 8+ years. I don't have a degree in that. I'm actually a certified pastry chef. So, given that, how many of you are 100% in what you want to do for the rest of your life? A couple. Good for you.
Yeah, I guess. Might as well.
So, we're going to kind of go through how I kind of made the decision to go into culinary and then to transition into the career I'm in now, which I think is more stable. Looking back, I'll tell you what I wish I could have done and what I probably should have done. And yeah, so we'll just get started there. So my journey starts with good luck. And I think that's for everybody. I mean, you're 18, 19, getting out of high school. You don't know, you're not even allowed to drink, let alone, you're supposed to decide what to do for the rest of your life and, you know, make a career and a living and eventually support a family and all these major decisions coming right out. And college costs money. You know, money is not, it doesn't grow on trees, it's expensive, classes are expensive, I can tell you because I'm back in school now, that it is expensive. I've never bought another book, even the ones I enjoy for $200. So, you know, you do want to make the right decision off the bat. And listening to your friends or the people around you, your family, your network is so, so important at that age. So this is my normal. This is how I started. I loved being at home. I'm originally from Butler. I did a lot of stuff there. I have 2 brothers, one older, one younger. Absolute drag. I appreciate them more now than I did back then, obviously. Very busy. We had a very, very busy family. My mom was back in school right around the age I am now, and she did it with 3 kids. Okay, and then my dad worked full time. He just retired 32, 33 years at one company. Who does that anymore? So I think generation, you know, baby boomers, millennials, that kind of stuff kind of comes into play when you look back, or when I look back, at some of the decisions I did make. My grandma was really big in the kitchen. She grew up above an Italian bakery, so she loved breads and pies and cakes and things like that. My mom also cooked a whole lot because she had 3 kids. If my dad got laid off, you ate spaghetti. You know, you really had to kind of compress and use what you had at your fingertips. So this is by high school. Butler Junior High School, 3.8 GPA. I did pretty well in school. I wasn't that person that skipped class. My parents would have killed me, first of all. But I did have honors classes, cheerleading captain, blah, blah, blah. So it kind of seems like the normal, typical, you know, high school life. I was in home ec as a senior, and I really liked it. I liked being in the kitchen. Now, in home ec, you did, I don't know if you guys took that in high school, but you did kind of the remedial things. Like they would pick something and you would all do it together. And that was home ec, and that was what cooking was in life or whatever. But I really, really liked it. I liked being in the kitchen. I think that stemmed from the fact that my mom and my grandma kind of were in there with me, you know, during my childhood. One day, and I see the people out there like Penn State and the people that visit, and I do that as well with Seven Springs, not college, but I recruit. Pennsylvania Culinary down in Pittsburgh, when it was in Pittsburgh, came into our home ec class, just like kind of we're doing here, and kind of gave us all a pitch. And I kind of liked what I heard. I heard 1.5 years instead of 4. I heard very easy. I heard cooking and baking, which I knew I was already good at. I was kind of passionate about it. So I'm like, yeah, I'll just do that. My parents wanted me to go to community college. You know, come to community college, get your generals done, and then you can pick. After 2 years, you're more mature, you've kind of done a little bit more, you can make a better decision. I'm going to culinary because it's 16 months. So I went down to Pica, you know, it was the pastry art, hung out with the culinary people, and that's what I decided to do. So on my journey, I did have the freshman fears, much like probably you guys did. Am I going to fit in? You're so used to high school and that, you know, kind of life that you're not sure. But it was pretty easy. I fit right in with all these people, and they were from all over the nation. So I got to meet people from Maryland, from California, from New York, from Texas. So it's kind of cool to feed off of their vibes from different areas in the nation that they lived. So I still have a lot of friends, you know, 16, 17 years later, from the culinary school. Time went very fast. So you go through semesters in school, just like you guys do here, and you take your praxis or your tests, and then, you're on to the next class, and, you take a couple a day. It's exactly the same. It went really, really fast. So I had to decide where I wanted to do my externship. And out of all the places, Disney World, California, I still wasn't ready to be too far away from home. I loved my home and my family, and I liked that closeness. At this point, a lot of our extended family, our immediate family, had moved away, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to stay near my parents and kind of within a couple hours. So I found somebody at Kent State University where I went to do my externship, and it was actually my mother's friend from Indiana, had a daughter who was living in Akron, Ohio. I said, how perfect is that? I'll just, move right into her duplex. It'll be great. Never had a roommate, never lived outside of home. Okay, so it was kind of a shock to me when I went. The first night I was there was black mold in the basement, and I had to be up at 2 a.m. for my externship that morning. And I ended up, throwing up that night. I was so sick. But I was so dedicated to what I was doing in the university itself that I still got up and went. So didn't have the best introduction into being away from home and by myself. So 2 a.m. is not a normal time. I will never, ever, ever do that again. I'm a night owl. Okay, I can stay up till 2, but don't think I'm getting up at 2 o'clock. It's just not happening. I'm more like an 8, 9 o'clock person. If I have to get up before then, don't talk to me until I have my coffee, that kind of person. So yeah. So I came back home after the externship. They only kept a couple people, and I was not one of those people, which is fine. I liked the campus. I liked kind of like the college vibe. When I went to Pike, I didn't have that. So it was kind of neat to walk around the campus and meet the kids, and I had a little spot at the cafeteria where I would have like my own creations. So I kind of made it my own. When I came back home, I got a job at Giant Eagle. College graduate working at a grocery store. It sounds great. Dad didn't like it. But I started doing cakes like this. Okay, not a big deal. The sprayer that you could use, all of that stuff, little kits, you put everything on top and just created. I really, really liked it. And up until then, like even in school, we didn't do a lot of that stuff. You did some sugar work, some tiered cakes, but they didn't really dabble in that too much. In school, one of my tests was, you know what a rosette is? It's kind of like this. It's not a rose, but it's similar, more of a circle. You had to do 6 perfect ones to pass your test. And I look back, like life is not even close to that. Like none of what I learned, I can't say none of what I learned, a lot of what I learned in school had nothing to do with the real world in that area. And I hate to say that in a school classroom, but you do have to kind of morph it and make it your own and make it apply to your life or your career. So after a month, I found that I can't live at home. I had found some space in my freedom, and I liked that. So I talked with my parents, we kind of looked, Googled some jobs and things like that, and I found Seven Springs was hiring a pastry chef. And we had gone to Seven Springs as kids, no big deal. We've gone to Nemacolin, Boys Park, all of those. We never went out west or anything. 3 kids, 2 adults on a limited budget. We did a lot of packages and things like that. Seven Springs, I thought was, oh my gosh, like this place is amazing. It's the places where you hopped on the bus and drove the whole way down there with a group of kids and had a blast. And I thought this might be okay. So I applied for the job. I got a phone call a couple days later from the executive pastry chef. He said, come down, I want to meet you. So I go down there, and this was years ago. He offers me a job down there, no housing, nothing like that, an hour and a half away from my family for $7.25. How are you supposed to survive on that? I had just been out making $10 an hour at Kent State University, and now I'm going to take a pay cut and move again. So I kind of negotiated with him a little bit. Never fear to negotiate. It's always important when you get a job to do that. And if they're set in their ways, they're set in their ways. All you can do is ask. The least they can say is no. So he did raise it a little bit. We walked around Somerset, tried to find me a cheap little apartment. We did find one. Crazy old lady had like a 2-car garage, and I stayed above that. It was really nice, but it was a good resume addition. I always remember my dad saying that. It's a resume addition. He wanted me to go to Greenbrier. I'm glad I didn't, because a little while later they kind of shut down and flipped over, and not a good idea. So that's how I ended up at Seven Springs. For the first 6 months, I hated it. Hated it. Too far away from my family. I didn't know anybody. It wasn't any fun. My friends were all up here. So I decided to kind of focus on what I was good at and stick it out to see, you know, it was a full-time job. I was getting benefits right out of college. That's what you want. That's what you look for. They trusted me with certain things, and as you can see there, I was actually pretty good at this. And I kind of felt that. They started moving me from the normal baking stuff into specialty cakes, wedding cakes. So now I'm creating something for someone that's going to live on in their album forever. That's a big deal to people, birthday cakes and so on. So that's kind of what I did. Some of the things I didn't like. And you can't really, I mean, you don't think about this when you get into it. I like this field. I have a passion for it. I'm going to get into it. You're working holidays, weekends, evenings, swing shifts, doubles. My family had to delay Christmas. We had to have Thanksgiving on the next Monday because I didn't have off. Now I have a family full of teachers. Okay, so they had holidays, weekends, the summer. Still jealous of that, if I'm going to be honest. But I really liked what I did. So I started taking a lot of orders for specialty cakes for family and friends and things like that. They came up at Seven Springs with this package weekend getaway. It was called the Gourmet Getaway. People would come down for the weekend and they would pay and they would eat like kings. Like some of the things they had, like you ever had a veal cheek? I didn't even know that was a thing that you could eat. But it was like some, you know, exotic, fantastic food. And I was actually a presenter there. So I did some cupcakes, did some speaking, which at that point in time was the first time I've really been up in front of people. And that can be very scary. I mean, you look at people and, you know those presenters that say, just envision everyone naked. You do not want to do that. You will emotionally scar yourself. Everyone's just like you. No one's any different. And I still operate on that kind of norm, on that kind of level. That even I've spoken to executives, CEOs, especially in my company, corporate. They're no different than I am. They're just further along in their career, in their path than I am. And it takes public speaking in a lot of different areas. You might not think so. As a teacher, as a presenter, which is eventually what I turned into at Seven Springs, you had to learn how to talk with people, had to constantly have a stream of, you know, vocabulary coming out of your mouth. You have to prep for that. You can't just get up and do it. I didn't work with a lot of people in the bakery. You worked with your crew, and you answered the phone, and that was it. It kind of taught me that people were weird. I didn't want to be out there with guests or customers, and I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to put on that face. I could be exactly who I wanted to be and not have to kind of put on that customer service face. After 5 years of working in the bakery, I started to get bored. Okay, I did every single shift, everything I could. I started to kind of transition into helping other departments, and I found that I really liked doing it, but the money wasn't there. And I was tired of working all the weekends and all the holidays. So I talked with my parents a little bit. You know, you don't want to be that person that gets the college degree and then doesn't use it. You know, mine was only maybe 20 grand, you know, depending. And I'm still paying it off at this point. But you don't want to, I didn't want to be that person. That I'm this and now I'm this. You know, I just totally wasted $20,000, how many years of my life, because I made a bad decision. You don't want to own up to that. And I was good at this. I did enjoy it, but I needed to get out and do something else, something that made a bigger difference than just decorating cakes. And the reason we're so far off the road on this one is because I did it. I decided that I was tired of that venue and that I wanted to work with people. I wanted to be more involved with kind of the outside world, the front of the house. So I decided to move up to the sales office. It was quite a transition. It was about November. In November in a ski season, you move no one. Everyone stays where they are until March. Okay, so they didn't want to let me go. I wanted an office job. I wanted Monday through Friday. I wanted 9 to 5. So I pushed and pushed and pushed, and they finally let me go up. I noticed that people were actually, they were right. You know, they were kind of cool. Other people, outside people, guests. That's one thing that you don't really think about is when you get into a field, are you good for that field? Are you fit for that field? Do you get along with people? I have a brother that I love to death. He's actually my little brother, but about this big. He works for Verizon. He works at night. He's kind of a supervisor. If I put him in front of this class, he would melt to the ground. He's not a good fit for that kind of area. So that's something I also learned in HR, which we'll talk about a little bit here in a minute. I decided after 2 years, I did weddings, I did groups, I did luncheons, I did kids things, you name it. I'm one that when I get in, I get all in. I want to know everything about it, learn everything about it, and then be able to do that and say that I've done it. If someone's off for the day, I can do their job. I want to be that person. And I think that's one thing a lot of people miss as they move up the ranks. You know, you have to be able to step down to where you were and fill in. Never forget where you came from. I was kind of done working for the man. I was done with people telling me that I was only worth this much. That if I asked for 50 cents, I could only get 25. I was worth more than that, and I knew I was. So I went and I studied for my insurance sales test, and eventually went to work for Aflac. Okay, Aflac, I mean, commercials, they're still out there. It's still a thriving company. However, I was not in it at a great time. I started it in 2007. I was out, I was traveling, I had a Lexus. Like, that was my moment. Until I put 40,000 miles in my car, and it started to break down, and then here comes the Great Recession. Okay, so right about 2008, about a year into it, everything started to kind of drop. People started pinching their pennies again. Real estate, all that housing, just the economy just kind of slumped. Okay, so it was kind of hard to sell people something, not to say they didn't really need it, but it was extra money out of their pocket. And the people that got the biggest discount, the teachers, were the ones that never bought it. The coal miners in West Virginia, when I went into their area, they ate it up. They understood the need for something if they got hurt in their job to take care of their family, to pay their bills. I still stand beside Aflac. I still have it. I've had policies for over a decade. I've sold it to my friends, my family. It is extra money, but one of those things where I'm going to be insurance poor until you actually get hurt, and then you're glad you have it. So I went through that phase. I met a lot of really good people. I got to travel quite a bit. I could take you about anywhere in the tri-state area. I recognized roads and things like that, but I needed something more stable. Towards the end, I wasn't getting out much. Cold calling was not my thing. I remember going into a guitar store up in Irwin. You're supposed to go out there and cold call, make a list and Excel, and I'm not good at, hey, you want to buy something from me? They don't know who you are. They don't really know what I'm selling. I'm getting them in the middle of their day and saying, buy something from me so I can make a living. I didn't like that. It reminded me of the vacuum salespeople, which some people are good at. I am not. So I needed something more stable, something that brought in a paycheck. When I worked in sales at Seven Springs, I worked with a lady. Her name was Joy, and she was exuberant. But she knew how I worked. She knew my ethic. And that's one thing I had from my parents, is that they taught me how to work. They taught me what it was to work on time, to keep a job, to not walk off and let people, or call off and let people have to pick up my responsibility. So she knew that I was good at that, and I was really organized. So she sat down with the assistant director at that time, and they brought me back in for like a lunch in 2009, which I was super nervous about. But again, thinking back, they're just people, it's not a big deal. I'm going back to Seven Springs, the same people I walked out on 2 years before. It's hard to do that. Luckily with Seven Springs, we're quick to forgive and forget, because if you're a good worker, we want you back. Okay, so I started as a recruiter, so much like the college recruiters you see out there, that's what I did. I would go and sit in colleges, and I would go to job fairs and just randomly talk to people and try and get apps. And it's not a very successful practice, but it's nice to get out there and kind of get people to remember you, know your name, things like that. About a year later, I was promoted to the training specialist. They found that I could actually get in front of people and just talk, which public speaking is something you're going to need. Get up, I don't care if it's in front of your pets or your family, get up and talk. Just talk about anything. If you can do that, then 90% of whatever you want to do out there is fine. Think about the things you'll have to do. Meetings, conferences, you'll have to present to corporate, depending on what it is you want to do in your life. Maybe you go into entrepreneurship and your sales. Now you're selling yourself to people, and they have to be able to buy you. So being able to get up and talk in front of just people on a whim is a good idea. I thought that since I didn't have an education, and I'm a certified pastry chef, being an HR representative, going out and representing a multi-million-dollar company, then maybe I should have a little bit of clout behind me. So I decided again to go back and take a PHR test. Now the PHR test is a professional in human resources. It was a lot, or it reminded me a lot, of the insurance test. Like I just wanted to scream. It's so much stuff that you have. They told me for the insurance test, just study it and then forget 80% of it. Then why am I studying it? That doesn't make any sense. I want to go to school. But the PHR was just as hard. I remember sitting in my car and just pleading to God, let me pass this test, because I'm not good at failure. That's just who I am as a person. But also I had put so much time and effort studying it. $700 that my parents gave me for like the book to be able to study, so much like the SATs or practicums or anything like that. I really tried hard and I didn't want to fail it. Okay, it's $300 every time you take the test. I don't have $300 for the next 4 attempts. So I tried hard, I really truly did, and I passed. And I didn't just pass, I passed, well above the line. So I was really excited about that. I do have to do continuing education, continuing to pay them to make sure I keep my certification, but that is what allowed me to put the PHR behind my name. And it didn't seem like a big deal, and at the time my director said, why don't you just let us pay for it? And I refused, and he wasn't very happy with me. He wanted to help me develop. He wanted to kind of train me and mentor me, and he really pushed me, to get more education and to go to seminars and do webinars. He allowed me to do that. I wanted something that was 100% mine. I wanted to do something again after these many years that I could say I did by myself. I had 100% of kind of the gold star, and I did that, and it felt great. So never think that you can't do that, even if it costs a little bit of money or you have to try really hard, or if it looks like a mountain in front of you, just do it. And there's hundreds of millions of other people that have done the same thing. So I do encourage you just to take that step. In 2017, which was my 8th year in HR, I was promoted again to the HR generalist. Now a generalist, and the way the structure kind of goes, you start out as a recruiter, we do training specialists, we do certain little admin representatives. Generalist is probably the highest you can get without going into management. So that is more of an encompassing thing. You can do employee relations. You can do remedial paperwork and faxing and typing and hiring and training and onboarding. But it's kind of the bubble that encompasses what an HR person is. You kind of can do it all. And that's where I wanted to be. I actually am training a girl that came up from Snowshoe. She went to WVU. And she just graduated last year, and she is our HR representative right now. Okay, she went into Parks and Rec. She wanted to be a park ranger, and now she's sitting in front of me in the office doing paperwork. Okay, so never think that you can't take little ebbs and turns. Seven Springs is a good resume addition. If you have to work there for a year or two or a season, it looks good on a resume. I can't tell you how many resumes I look at now that just make my eyes bleed. They're just awful. They're awful. That's one thing. Having a good resume is so important. But it doesn't have to be like everyone else's. Some of the best resumes that I see on an annual basis are marketing, because they're allowed to be creative. They're allowed to think outside the box. Some of the ones I see that of people that some are uneducated, depends on what field they're in, are like in Notepad. You're like, I'm not even gonna print this off because it's gonna hurt you in the end. If we're actually hiring for a finance manager right now at Seven Springs. So accounting, finance director, so finance manager is right there. So you're kind of like right in the middle management. This lady applied yesterday and she didn't have a resume. Well, I knew immediately, when you're applying for management positions, have a resume. Definitely have a resume. The application is an application. The other thing that really irks me is when people don't fill out the application and they just put, see resume, see resume, see resume. Like, just do what we ask you to do. Because if we hire you, you're going to come in and be like, no, no. Follow the process, when you get to that point. So I emailed her directly. I said, it didn't attach. I don't know what's going on here. And I gave it to my manager just to look at the application. Immediately, he looked at the first page and said, where's the resume? So, that's real world advice. Like, always have A resume, always keep it updated. Some of the funniest ones that I see are, cover letter resume, they go together. You can have one, you can't, it doesn't matter to me. I'm more interested in the resume, what it looks like, the effort you put into it. If you had gaps in your employment, why is that? If you're not educated, are you trying at least to get educated? We have a lot of people at Seven Springs, because it's entry level, that don't have GEDs. Sometimes we don't consider them for year-round employment. I want to see that you're at least going to try and get that. I want to see that if you don't have a degree, at least you're going to try and get that, or you're currently enrolled in school. I want to see the effort. I want to see the participation. I want to see the motivation, because that says a lot about your character. And at Seven Springs, we hire character and train skill. Anybody can sweep a floor. Anybody can run a groomer. Anybody can run a lift. Anybody can do that stuff. But we have to hire the right fit for that position. The other thing is you want to find a good mentor in your field. It could be a teacher, it could be a boss, it could be a parent. It doesn't really matter. It's someone that's knowledgeable in the field and is willing to support you and help you in whatever you do. We had that in my office. It was my director from the time that I was hired in as a recruiter. His name was Joe Cummins. You can see him behind me. He was great. He was the one that pushed me to get more education. If I didn't want to go back to school, which he still pushed hard about, then to go to webinars, to seminars, get the little certifications that add up to bigger resume additions. Just get out there and don't be stagnant in what you want to do. Great, you have a bachelor's degree. You got it 10 years ago. What have you done since? Our brain wants to constantly learn. And no matter what you're doing, even if it's the continuing education classes here, say you go to a Word or an Excel, that makes you better. That makes you, it makes you look better on the resume, because you're actually continuing your education. It's not just bachelor, master's, stop. That's not the way the world works. We want to see, and I can tell you from experience, school's important. I've been passed over for some positions. I have a friend at the Pirates, and he got promoted. And I was doing at Seven Springs exactly what he was doing at the Pirates. They would not even let me apply for the job because I did not have a bachelor's. They had a system that kicked you right out. And I've seen that time and time and time again. So over the last, I would say 2 or 3 years, I've applied 100 times and been given maybe one opportunity for a part-time librarian. Like, that's not what I want to do with my life. So eventually I had to decide to go back to school. And I did that last year. So it's a big step. I mean, you guys already know that. It takes a lot of time. I have a full-time job, which is more intense in the winter. For about 5 or 6 months, it's super intense. So I didn't know if I had time for that. I didn't know if I could stick out something. Obviously, I didn't know if I could afford it. All of that stuff goes through your mind. All those fears, everything telling you no, don't do it, it's too much. All of that will happen, and that will be on a daily basis as you get out of school and get into the real world. But it's you that has to fight through that. Find somebody like a mentor that helps you fight through that, that is behind you telling you, just do it. Just do it. You're worth it. Just do it. Joe was that person. He was more interested in the employee than, I can't say the company, but he always did what was right by the employee. Always. He treated his family well. He treated us like gold. Like nobody treated anybody in the organization like Joe treated us. And I mean, he had a small handful of people, but he would do that with everybody. You would see him do that with everybody. He'd shake your hand, he'd say hi, he'd call you on Christmas. Like, that's just the kind of guy he was. And that's the kind of person you want to be. Find that person that is that example. Joe died on Christmas Eve 2 years ago. He was struck by a car while out running. So it was pretty tragic. It was something that the office went through as a whole. It was pretty awful for us because that was our mentor. That was our coach, and now he's gone. He left the company about 6 months prior for a bigger job at Cisco, the food service place. It gave him more money to support his kids. He was really big on education, wanted to kind of pile it up so he could afford to send his 3 kids to school. He didn't leave us and just say sayonara. You could call him, you could email him, you could text him. He was still that mentor and coach, even though we didn't see him every day. So when he died, it really hit us hard. After that, it didn't take long for our office to fall apart once he passed. We really have had to build up over the last year. So not only do you deal with what you know, what other people know, and the job that you have to do, the people around you, when you find that person, hang on to them. You know, they're the ones that back you. They're the ones that support you and will help you out in whatever you want to do. So ultimately, Joe is a lot of the reason that I went back to school, because he was always the one that pushed me, you know, work-wise, and supported me through any kind of transition like that. So these are kind of the tips I have for you. We've gone a little bit through, you know, my experience. I was telling you earlier that I'm a certified pastry chef that is now an HR generalist, and it seems really odd. The only person in my office right now that has any kind of HR degree, and it's a minor, is our boss, and that's it. The other guy sold insurance. He has a master's in some kind of economic, you know, crunchy granola something. He loves to do that kind of stuff, but he's completely off the cuff. Our benefits specialist, who also does payroll, has no degree whatsoever. And then the girl in front of me, obviously she wanted to be a park ranger, and now she's sitting there as an HR representative. So never think that because, you know, you don't have the education behind you that you can't do something. You can. And if you are lucky enough to be able to get that education and have that on your resume, use it to the best of your ability. I still use my pastry. I still do friends, family. Next week I'm doing like cookies for somebody. I do a lot of pro bono stuff because I like to volunteer. I like to do things for people. So I do Christmas with the troops. I also volunteer with Flight 93, which we're doing next week. They do the planetary every year. Get out there and get to know people. That's how you network. That's how you get to know different people. Andrew and I were in Leadership Westmoreland. Oh my gosh, was it like 2 years ago? We were kind of the inception class. They brought it back after a little while of not having it. It was great. I mean, I always looked forward to that one Thursday a month that we could all get together and do something, you know, in the industry. They put stuff together, and we're still in contact to this day. A lot of them, we always say we want to get together and like treasure it, and we never do that, you know. But if you find those people, hang on to them. You're very lucky that you're in a generation where you can do that. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of that stuff instantly connects you with people, no matter where they go. And those kind of people are the ones that give you this kind of opportunity. So, you know, never say no to anything, you know, unless it's against like your morals or your beliefs, obviously. But never say no, even if you're scared to do it, like just do it. The people sitting in front of you are the same as you were 10 years ago, or even now. So it's really important. Never give up. Do what you want to do. Attitude really, truly is everything. When I hire for Seven Springs, I'll tell you a little story about 3 guys that we hired for Lyft the Ambassador. And basically it's just a Lyft operator. We hire, oh my gosh, 150 of those every year. The girl in front of me decided, I don't need to meet these people face to face. Let's just hire them, just filter them through, just get them out there and get them to work. If we don't have lifts, we don't have skiing. So it was really important that we have that at least bolstered enough that we could start.